Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Horse Geeks podcast, where we look at horses and riding from the inside out. I'm Kirsten Nelson, professional horse trainer, and Deb Romero is with me once again,
Hi.
certified Alexander technique instructor. And we don't know what to call today's topic. So it'll
Just
probably
come up in the
evolve.
end.
It'll come up somewhere in the conversation. But essentially, I don't know, it's too long of a title, but sort of understanding the difference between self-regulated behavior versus sort of gaining the behavior we want through from our horses through condition response.
Oh, that's a long title. Yeah.
Or, yeah, that's way too long of a title.
It's good
But
though.
sort of talking about the difference, like the concept of the learning frame of mind that I teach is really to understand how the nervous system itself functions. And when we understand the nervous system, behavior is sort of driven by thoughts and emotions that affect the nervous system that sort of send the whole body into a response. So I'm still not sure what the title is, but the difference and the reason I kind of came up with the name, the learning frame of mind, is because the result is so different than what I
Mm,
see with desensitization clinics or flooding or sacking out or even operant conditioning or condition response. It's like all of these ways we think about shaping behavior is is really not considering how's the nervous system underneath the skin operating? Like what's driving the choices of the
mm,
individual, whether it's us or our horse,
hmm Yeah,
right?
brings up Alexander's book, The Use of the Self, that how are we kind of like just came up. It's like I never told my kids it's cold outside, put on a coat. That's kind of conditioning them. It would be like, hey, you know, get a jacket if let them go
If
out
you're
and be
cold.
cold and come back in. So that to me is like the self-regulation of ding, ding, ding. Oh, I need to think about this
Oh, that's a good example.
and self-regulate, like, wow, nobody's covering my butt here. So, and I wonder why we do that as humans. All of
Because
those things
that's
you
the
said.
way we think of shaping behavior, especially with a horse, because the horse is
Mm,
perceived as less intelligent. And so we think we have to get obedience, control, expose them to X number of scary things and scary situations
mm.
until they figure out somehow that it's all okay. And to me, it's a very slow, inefficient, tedious strategy that doesn't work that well. And I wanted something more. I
Right.
realized that if my horse feels safe most of the time, which is going to trigger the parasympathetic um, dominance in the nervous system. And I'll kind of go over the nervous system a little bit, but basically, this parasympathetic nervous system, we call it the fight, flight, or sorry, we call it the rest and digest nervous system because that sort of describes the state of the individual.
Right.
And we call the sympathetic nervous system the fight and flight nervous system because that also describes the state of the individual. And it's so global that everybody can do it in their own unique way. There's different manifestations of behavior or what that means, but it essentially boils down to what's the driving factor from the inside out,
That
right?
that is reminds me of school kids, that how could we possibly think they're learning if they're in fear mode, if they have
Right.
anxiety or that type of thing. There's no, like you said, there's no learning frame of mind unless you've got the calm parasympathetic going on, even in people.
Right. And to me, the learning frame of mind is describing a cohesive state of the nervous system. So when we say rest and digest, we sort of think relaxation equals doing nothing.
Oh, yeah, that's true. We make that
We
association.
sort of make
Just
that
relax. Yeah.
association where fight and
Yeah.
flight is now an activity. But
Uh,
I, the learning frame of mind, when we talk about a cohesive state of the nervous system, what that means is that it's a unified, healthy use of the nervous system, the entire nervous system. So the central nervous system is the brain, brainstem, and spinal cord. Everything else in all the nerves in our body and the ganglias of nerves are the peripheral nervous system. So in the peripheral nervous system, we have a segment of conscious control, how we use our skeletal muscles. That's called the somatic nervous system division. And we have the autonomic nervous system as part of the peripheral system. And that's mostly the unconscious control. And so the sympathetic and parasympathetic segments are segments of the autonomic nervous system, which means it's all that stuff that doesn't feel directly in our control, but it
mm,
affects everything we do.
yeah.
It affects our
Yeah.
health. It affects our behavior. It affects our ability to focus the mind or not focus the mind, to think, or to either basically self-regulate our behavior, to create a response to stimulus rather than a reaction
Mhm.
that's more driven by instincts.
And that's exactly what, for me, the Alexander work is all about.
Yeah, it's the
Is
same thing.
it's the same thing. It's learning to pause and stop or inhibit that reaction that we always do and maybe ask different questions
Yeah.
or try something different to maintain, to not to react to something, but to actually act in a healthy way.
Yes. And I was looking for a descriptive catchphrase that just sort of encapsulated a very complex idea. And in Alexander technique, you guys talk endlessly about sort of utilizing conscious awareness, basically, when
Mhm,
you say pause, inhibit, redirect, or direct
mhm,
the body consciously. And
mhm.
that's basically the essence of what I call the learning frame of mind, which is utilizing conscious awareness to maybe redirect from something that feels unsafe to something that feels safe. Redirect the
Right.
mental focus, right? Or
And I think
pause,
what you pause and ask questions instead of thinking we always have to be in control of the horse.
right?
Yeah.
And the experience, I guess the difference on a just really practical level was I started to find if I cultivated this learning frame of mind, halt, walk, trot, canter in any situation where sort of things were going sideways,
Mhm,
if I made the task easier and brought me and my horse back into that sense of feeling safe, to put it in a nutshell,
mhm.
then the more often I did that, it had a cumulative effect
Yes, it's huge.
that then resulted in my horses making choices that I had never trained them or conditioned them to do.
I think
That's
that
what blew
that's the
me
key.
away.
Yeah,
I never desensitized them to the kid on the bicycle that came out of nowhere. But
right,
instead of having an uncontrollable fear reaction, my horses looked, thought about it, considered it, and chose not to go there because feeling afraid doesn't feel good. And so
right.
the more we're sort of habituating the state of the body in the nervous system cohesion or dominance of the parasympathetic nervous system during all activities, then you just get used to feeling better. You become more addicted to the pleasure hormones
Mhm.
than addicted to the stress hormones. And so that conditioning of the nervous system, I guess, which isn't, we're not really conditioning it. We're sort of focusing the mind and focusing our efforts towards anything that feels, we could say safe. We could say what we want instead of what we don't want. We could say something that feels stable versus unstable, something that feels renewing rather than depleting. Like we could use all kinds of words to describe essentially what feels good to us is also healthiest for us and healthiest for our
Right.
horse. And
Right.
good and bad is a little bit too black and white. There's way
I
more shades of
there's
gray
no
in there.
yeah, there's no right or wrong.
Hmm.
I was out long lining a horse this morning, remembering when I was working with a student, when the horse, say, wanted to change direction, she just got totally bamboozled by and I'm like, what about that flexibility to go, well, maybe the horse has a better idea,
That's
you
for
know?
us, absolutely.
Yeah.
Because
And to see people say no, no to the horse, no, that's not right. Well, maybe they have a better idea.
yeah, and I think also to be humble enough to realize not everything is in our conscious control, even our own bodies.
Mm,
I think because the idea of the learning frame of mind is that when the sympathetic nervous system is triggered to dominate the body, that goes past our ability to consciously
mhm.
control anything. And it has a systemic influence on everything because it's going to, send a different, it's going to produce different hormones. It's going
Right.
to influence the heart rate, respiration. It's going to send blood to the limbs for strength instead of to the digestion or the immune system. And there's actually research that shows the information gathered through the peripheral nerve system when we're dominant in the sympathetic state, that information is going to the limbic portion of the brain. It's going to the older instinctual portion of the brain
Mm.
rather than the frontal cortex, which is where we have the capacity for choice as well as imagination.
And that's why Alexander School is 3 years. It
Yeah.
takes forever
Well, and that's why
to
sometimes
really become conscious of what you're doing,
and that's why
what you're
sometimes
thinking. Yeah.
people think I'm not working a horse if I'm
Mm.
just focused on helping a horse shift that nervous system use
Hmm.
to help redirect the mind or find an activity, find a task, find an exercise, find a strategy where the horse can start to mentally focus on something that helps them feel safer or
Right.
do something that helps them feel safer and let that nervous system transition from kind of an unhealthy use to a healthier use. And so, because triggering the fight flight nervous system doesn't require actual danger. And we see
No, it
that with
doesn't.
our horses all the
Oh
time.
yeah. Oh
It
yeah.
just has to be a trigger that makes us question safety or
That's
or
very interesting point. Yeah.
yeah,
Could
so just like us, we can sit in our living room where we're perfectly safe and watch a scary movie and have a sympathetic response,
yes.
right? So, or we could just sit there and have thoughts, something we're afraid is going to happen, and that can still trigger the whole sympathetic
Hmm.
nervous system to dominate. And that just has, we literally, I guess, in a sense, can't think when we're in fear because we're really tapping into a different part of the brain. And what we call thinking is really more of a conscious awareness, conscious control, having the choice, being able to regulate the self. All of that can only happen when the rest and digest nervous system is more dominant, or if we have a high level of physical demand, that's where cohesion is a better explanation because autonomic functions are still operating,
Right.
right? Like we're still sweating even though we're thinking about what we're doing. We're not afraid, but it's like the nervous system is still tending to the body's vital functions, regulating everything. And so cohesion is like in sports, we call it being in the zone.
Aha. Yeah.
Being in the
The runner's
zone
high.
or the runner's high or something
Yeah.
like that. That's kind of what we call the experience of nervous system cohesion. So the learning frame of mind isn't slow down and take a nap. It's a way of keeping the whole nervous system in a cohesive balance during any and all activities.
I really like that because I saw that in my mare this morning. Just doing, she was actually, when she was trotting, actually looking at, well, how could I do this better? She would slow down, she'd speed up, but you could tell she was thinking. She wasn't just, oh, mom said trot, so trot.
Yeah, she might be figuring out, how do I do that comfortably? How
Yeah,
do I
is there a better way? I could just see her thinking and switching and changing. She and it's a totally, I don't know how to describe the look or the feel of that to help people.
but we recognize it. We
I
recognize
recognize it.
it.
Oh, I was like, oh, she's in the learning frame of mind. Look at her. She's just
Yeah, it's the same way we recognize or could kind of guess what other people are thinking and feeling through energy and body language and
uh,
behavior. It's no different. And the horse's nervous system is really like ours. Everything is pretty much the same. The brain size is smaller, but the structures of the brain, the segments of the brain are the same. So they have a limbic system and they have a frontal cortex. And the difference is horses have maybe a simpler, less complicated version of choice, and they
mm,
really have almost no capacity for imagination. So if a horse has a bad experience today, they don't imagine that tomorrow would somehow be better or different. There,
interesting.
so, but we can still work with that. Like you saw in your mare, she's what we call thinking about it. She's making
Hmm.
choices, right?
Yeah.
That
Instead of
capacity
just,
is there.
she said to trot, I'm just going to trot. That's not what I saw. I saw a real thinking creature this morning, so that was fun.
Yeah. And if our aides, as the director of the horse or asking the horse to do something, if we don't allow space for that,
Oh, good point.
they don't learn to use that part of their brain.
I got to write that down. Allow allow space for learning.
Or
I
for
like
even
that.
what we call thinking.
And thinking. And we
Yeah.
don't, because I see people trot, 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 and just drive, drive, drive. And I can't, I think they just must mentally shut down.
Well, and
That's
that's
like,
the difference. When the limbic part of the brain, like in research, when they put, nodes on the brain for people, even in our complex brains, that older instinctual limbic portion of the brain can't light up or be active with electrical impulses at the same time as the
mm,
cognitive part of the brain or the frontal cortex, right? The frontal lobe of the brain. And so, in a sense, we can't consciously control what we're doing. That's why we feel a little out of control. When we're
mm,
reacting instinctively, we feel a little less in control of our emotions, our behavior, our energy, whatever. Because, and that's sort of the humility of it, is
hmm,
it's like, our body has a mind of its own and the brain is part of it. But
yeah,
like, in the heart math research, they're saying there's more ascending nerves from the heart to the brain than there are from the brain to the heart. And, the old paradigm is that our executive brain controls the sort of workforce of the body, and it doesn't. It's a constant feedback loop. The brain is more of a processor. It gives
storage
things,
unit.
yeah, or it gives things meaning, right?
Hmm.
And where the body, the whole rest of the peripheral nervous system has an intelligence, right? So it's sort of gathering information through the five senses, and then the brain is processing that. And so if we're in fear and the sympathetic nervous system, fight flight's dominating, we kind of can't think,
And
don't make,
that,
we don't have the capacity of choice like we
mm,
do when the
right, the
rest
capacity of
in,
choosing or pausing or interrupting that.
yeah. And so
Yeah,
that's bigger than our brains
right.
because it's a whole body response. And that's why, like chronic low level fear or what we call stress is so unhealthy. It creates a myriad of health issues because the body and the nervous system are in this stuck in this loop that's affecting all of the autonomic functions, digestion, respiration, immune system, circulation, the muscle use, unconscious muscle use as well as conscious muscle use. And so you go, wow, like that's a big deal. That was the
Mhm.
thought that crossed my mind. I'm like, this is huge.
This is huge.
So, kind of looping back to our intention of topic is like that suddenly shifted my whole paradigm. I go, if I just keep cultivating a cohesive use of the nervous system in the horse I work with, no matter what I'm doing, and that's what the whole workbook of exercises I wrote on basic handling is like, we all got to groom, we all got to pick up feet.
Mhm.
We all got to have vet visits, farrier visits, trailer load, catch our horse, lead our horse, tie our horse.
Mhm.
All of those basic handling skills are not physically demanding for the horse. And it's a great opportunity to sort of start to question or become aware. Which nervous system? Like, how is the nervous system operating during those simple tasks?
That's a great subject because we were talking the other day about we don't notice when it's small. We just notice when it gets really big. For instance, we were talking, oh, all of a sudden my horse is real fidgety when the farrier's here, or things like
Yeah,
that, that the horse is telling us I am not okay
yeah,
in a very small way. And if we really pay attention to that and take care of that, then it doesn't get bigger.
yeah. Because, like I said, there's shades of gray where if we think of the most extreme version, we're terrified, our horse is terrified,
Right.
right? The more moderate version might be unsure,
Hmm.
or right? Or I don't, what's a better word? Because the mild version might be unsure, and the moderate between unsure and terrified, there's a big moderate area.
Boom.
There's a big moderate area where I find it's like annoying.
It annoys us.
It's
Oh,
either annoying to our horse or annoying to us, which can, come out as fidgety or
it's like this
nippy.
little rub.
Yeah, and it's in that sort of moderate, not quite ideal use of the nervous system that we start to label behavior as a personality trait,
Right.
whether it's a person or a horse. Do you know what I mean? Like that
Hmm.
person is always kind of aggressive. That's actually and not what do I want to say? Not in a way that creates fear, but it's annoying. That's kind
Right.
of the moderate part of that. If we look at it, it's gradiated all the time. It's never really black and white, but we notice the extreme
Yeah,
versions.
we do.
That's kind of in your face, time to deal with it version. But the annoying version can start to alert us that that nervous system isn't really in an ideal state.
I actually had that experience with a student, and the horse would go by one area as he came in the ring, and he would put his head up and show the whites of his eyes. And she would try to drive him through it, which is the normal
Right.
way we do. And
It's how
I
we're all
was like,
taught.
no, let's long line.
Let's shift it to something more manageable.
More manageable
Yeah.
where the horse felt safe, uncomfortable. And it's not about driving them through that.
Yeah, and there's a huge sort of human component that is
Mm,
really fear-based or ego-based, how we're all taught if a horse is afraid of something, make them go towards it,
I know, right?
right? Or I went through as a, professional trainer, there was a period of time where, my ego wanted to show I could ride scared horses. I could
Mm,
stick on anything. I could deal with it and muscle it around and get the horse to comply whether or not,
right.
whether or not the horse felt good about it didn't even really enter my
I remember
awareness.
those days too.
Yeah. And that's really encouraged. We almost hold those riders in higher esteem because they're doing
Mm,
something so scary. And it finally occurred to me again around the time of sort of really understanding the nervous system that I wasn't helping the horse. I was part of the problem.
right.
And that was like big old bite of humble pie. And so I have to sort of disregard what other people think of me. And if I'm helping this horse really develop in a healthy way,
Hmm.
being in the rest and digest nervous system, being cohesive through the use of the nervous system is a very important ingredient. And
Yeah.
then
And
what
yeah,
sort of happened as an unexpected side effect was this sort of laundry list of behavioral problems and personality flaws just evaporated. Like
they do.
they just weren't an issue. And I had never addressed any single one of them. It was like this change just occurred when the horse felt different, the horse behaved different. And that was so hard to explain to people that even if you have to slow things way down, in order to help the nervous system calm down and shift, it pays dividends in unexpected ways.
Yeah.
I had,
And I see that the whole theory of speed creates balance or push them through it. All of that I has not been successful for me as far as keeping a well-behaved horse.
yeah, or I go, how's that working for you? Because fear in riders is a huge problem.
Mhm.
Thinking we just have to be tougher, we have to, get back on when we fall off, we have to pretend we're not afraid, we fake it till we make it. We're taught all of
Mhm.
these things to don't let the horse know you're afraid. And I go, "Pff, your body is like
It's resonating it.
broadcasting to your horse. I go, there's no way to avoid it. And unless we
Exactly.
authentically feel safe, right,
Right.
then we can't really operate or think clearly and use the capacity of conscious awareness, consciously directing, making decisions. All of that is inhibited depending on which nervous system is sort of running the show.
Right.
And same for our horses. So I still don't have a good title because I'm like, how do you say behavior could be self-regulated by our horse? Like even that's kind of a long title, but that's the essence.
Healthy behavior can be self-regulated. It's kind of like looking at the Alexander technique and just repeating and inhibiting for years until you get to a place where some of it might be a little bit healthy self-regulation going on.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because the first year of school, you're just so you just can't believe how many bad habits you have that it's really overwhelming. And I think for the horses, it could be that way too. They're like, oh my gosh, this is really overwhelming stuff they're asking. And like you
Yes.
said, if you just bring it down a few notches and really keen in, is the horse with you? Is the parasympathetic? Are they blinking and chewing and actually with you, or are they stone faced and just doing what you're asking?
Yeah, and when it comes to movement, which is a big deal, we all want to improve performance, how our horse does tasks or how our
Right.
horse moves. And kind of going back to that podcast we did on tasks don't teach. Tasks don't teach because we could do anything in either nervous system. Like just because our horse is in fear doesn't mean our horse won't obey us or do the
Right.
tasks to the best of their ability. But you can't get good movement without conscious awareness of movement. So it's we all have to do the same tasks. I go, everybody's gonna halt, walk, trot, canter, go
Hmm.
left, go right. But it's sort of if our horse or us are in a state of, the sympathetic nervous system, the fight flight nervous system dominating, then we're never going to do them well. We're going to kind of
Or
get through
consciously,
them.
there's no conscious
Right.
I remember
And
riding
this
many
is
jump
why,
courses and not remembering.
well, this is why you can repeat, like I've taken horses out, fearful horses on trail rides, because the idea is X number of trail rides, the horse
Mm,
becomes reliable. And I go, oh, no, it doesn't, because I've ridden horses that never reduced fear on trail rides.
right.
And the only way to get that horse safe as a trail horse was before, during, and after the trail ride, I had to pay attention to what the nervous system was doing inside the horse, which nervous system is dominating. And then I'm reading that through what is the horse focused on? What's the energy, right? Is the energy calm or tense or excited? What's the body language telling me? What are the behavioral choices the horse
Mm.
is making? All of those are indicators to which nervous system is sort of running the show at any given moment. And if I don't alter or change my strategy or what I'm asking the horse to do, I can continue, but that's why the learning doesn't stick. The skill development doesn't stick. Your horse gets 6 months off and you feel like you're starting over. Where
Yeah.
when I've worked on just developing what I call the learning frame of mind, that cohesive state of the nervous system, anything we ever worked on is still in there and easy to tap into. So if the horses have months off, we literally pick up where we left off.
Yeah, I've
I'm
seen
I'm
the
never
same
going
thing.
backwards.
Yeah. Yeah, I see that with the horses that get to, and uh, it's kind of like anything, if you're wanted to get into karate, but you just wanted to know a little bit, that's as far as you're going to go. But if you keep on programming yourself to get up to black belt level, that is a whole different level of education that
Yes.
you can always tap into. It's always available to you. And I see that in my horses that, my horses personally that you and I've been working with for 15 some years now. I just love the language that's going on between us and seeing them self regulate themselves, their behavior. It's always a true test, like you said, with the bicycle, or for me, it's the UPS truck, and my dog's chasing the UPS truck. If and we live on a rural road, so it's stone, and it's very noisy when trucks go down it. And that to me is the true test. If whatever horse I'm working with can notice that, but self regulate and bring themselves back to their work, that's a
Yes.
big milestone to me.
No, and even in martial arts training for people, learning not to act, not to react
Hmm.
with fear, aggression, anxiety because you lose control.
Right.
Like, you know, in all martial arts, that's a big part of developing the skills. And it's the same for riders. Like every lesson yard I've ever gone to, you hear the same instruction being yelled out. Relax your arms, relax your legs. And it's like, if
What
the
does that
rider
mean?
is unsure or in that
Mhm.
state of being annoyed or frustrated or actually terrified, you, the human cannot relax the arms. It's a physical, impossible request.
No, because the central nervous system is saying, we're not relaxed, so I'm going to shut down something for you.
Exactly. Or I'm going to keep causing you to grip more than you
Exactly.
can control because that's a human survival response is to
Right.
grip with the hands.
Especially the hands. Hands are a big deal
Right.
because that goes back to eating, getting
Right.
feet. I mean, it's a fetal thing. It's
Or hanging on,
or hanging on,
hanging on for dear life.
all of
Yeah.
those.
And so, that instruction to riders, it's like even when I work with riders, if no matter what the rider says to me, because brains are complex, we can override how we authentically feel. The energy, the mental focus, what they talk about,
Yeah, exactly.
and the body language are all giving me clues about how that rider's nervous system is really running the show. And we're not always aware of it because we think our brain controls everything. But I go, our body will override our brain. And that's why we feel like, why won't my arm do what I'm telling it to do? Because your arm knows how to survive better than your brain,
Right.
right? And so that's why it's very humbling when we realize this. We go, if we don't do what we need to do,
Mm,
right? To focus on things that feel safe, that feel renewing, that feel wanted versus unwanted, or that feel may help us feel stable. I go, then we really
yeah.
are out of control of our own
Or
behavior.
even I have writers, how what do you feel right now? Like you said, if I can visually see tension just going to the mounting block. If
Hmm.
there's I have a rider that had an accident at the mounting block.
Yes,
Um, pause there, don't continue. Pause, get back in touch with yourself and make some changes. It's not just, oh yeah, that's there. I'm just going to keep going.
right. And that's sort of what we're encouraged to do
We are
as
very much
riders,
so.
is just push through it. And I'm like, well, how's that working for you? Because my insurance rates keep going up. And
And I tell people they forget you have a choice.
yes,
You have a choice. If that huge fear comes up at the mounting block, then maybe getting on the horse
is
is not
one
a good
more,
idea today.
maybe it's one step too far.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So realizing that, actually tuning into what your central nervous system is telling you
right.
is a heck of a lot better idea than trying to push it away.
Well, it's, it has many benefits. The number one benefit when I'm training horses is overall health. It has
Good
that
point.
big of an impact on the health of the horse through training. Number two, safety. I go because whether it scares us or not, the horse being in fear is always going to make us less safe in unexpected ways.
And let's talk
So
about the fear.
safety and health are the two main reasons I
Right.
started working on it. But then I also realized if I want to improve a horse's movement, just like you were describing, when you asked your horse to trot on the lunge line and you gave her the space to not have an obedient, immediate, snappy response, you watched her think about how could I either find more efficiency, more comfort, what feels better to go into trot?
hmm
How do, and that's the horse doing the same thing you're teaching people to do in the Alexander technique. Just
Right.
pause and kind of consider what it feels like. And horses can do that. That's the key to improving the movement in all gaits
I
and
agree.
all of performance. And if
Hmm.
we don't, first of all, make sure the horse has the capacity to make choice in the cohesive use of the nervous system or dominance of the parasympathetic nervous system, then that's not even on the table. A horse
That's
won't
so
think about it.
interesting you bring that up because as some of the rehab horses we've talked about, they've never been given the opportunity to have their own thinking.
Right.
And
And
when you
yeah,
offer it to them, they get a little,
a
like,
little,
wait a minute, I'm not used to this. What the heck are you asking?
yeah,
Giving me space to make mistakes. Oh my goodness.
yeah. It can almost be a
It's a
little
big,
overwhelming at
yeah.
first for some horses. Absolutely.
They get very expressive about it because I think the fear-based response to me, fear can be come out in anger, flight, all of those are, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, are still fear-based.
Yeah, and I use the term overtrained. I don't know how else to
Oh,
explain it,
that's interesting.
but I go a lot of training because professional trainers are effective, if nothing else.
That's a good
And
point.
if obedience and dominance and doing tasks are the focus of the professional, a lot
Hmm.
of horses make it, quote unquote, through their training in ways that are dysfunctional use of the body
Right.
or kind of in the wrong nervous system. So either the movement is compromised or the horse is just sort of waiting for an opportunity to get out of the deal because the deal is not enjoyable,
Right.
right? So they get harder to catch or they cooperate less, they defend
Those
themselves
little
more.
things. Yep.
Yeah. And so that overtraining is
Hmm.
kind of a survival tactic of horses. Like they don't think and they shut
Right.
down
They
feelings
hmm
and they shut down even like they can become really dull because they're trying to shut down sensory perception
Yeah.
because they feel helpless or they feel overwhelmed, just like we would have the same response. And so when I work with a horse like that, sometimes that first layer of helping the nervous system change its state opens Pandora's
I
box.
totally agree with you
Oh
like
my
that.
God, like everything comes out.
Everything.
And it can look like a massive setback instead of the first step of progress. And
Hmm.
that's when everybody comes in to help. All your favorite people at the barn show up and go, you should do this and you should do that. And
Oh,
don't
here
let
we
him get
go.
away with this and don't
Don't let
do
him
that.
get away with that.
Yeah.
That's a biggie.
Yeah.
And that to me is just ego and control, like we talked about. And that seems to be what most horse training, riding disciplines do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it really, in order to what I would call develop horses' skills or develop ability, which to me is what training needs to be, I first need that individual horse to find an internal sense of safety, which
Hmm.
is going to influence how the nervous system is functioning, which is going to influence everything.
Everything.
It's going to influence the health, it's going to influence the behavior, it's going to influence the movement, everything.
Yep.
And so that's why it's so important to me as part of the first layer of training, really. I go because until I have that, I'm basically just shooting myself in the foot, or I'm just gonna,
We're back to basic handling, right?
if that's where we have to start, then that's
Yeah.
a good place to start because those tasks aren't demanding a physical
Right.
coordination that might also be problematic,
And
right?
I think that's the horses normally sent to you are ones that have had those little hiccups, but hit an extreme
Yeah, or
where
if
the owner
horses,
trainer goes, I can't handle this horse anymore.
yeah, so if you have an extreme safety issue or the horse is lame, or
Mm-hmm.
it's been so chronic you have ulcers or digestive issues or metabolic issues. It's like at least we know the body itself is going to feel reasonably stable at halt and walk. So we're not challenging also the stability of the
Nice
body at
thing. Yeah.
fast speeds, tight turns. So I go, okay, the body is at least physically stable, which means it's faster to same thing, like if we take the rider off and we slow things down to halt and walk, at least we know we're not challenging the stability of the body. So shifting the nervous system goes a whole lot faster,
Right.
right? And then
And I
you
think horses seek people that do that. Does that make sense?
oh yeah, because it feels good.
Because they go, "Oh, you're different."
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, so
There's
my
no
horses
better feeling than
seek wanting to be with me.
yeah, and that was another side effect of kind of focusing on the use of the nervous system first, what I call the learning frame of mind, because they wanted to come spend time with
Right.
me.
They want more. They're like,
They
"Oh,
want
this is
more.
interesting."
Yeah, and for most people, they think work and they think their horses think of work as a four-letter word, that it's what you have to slog through to get to what you want to do. And I go, it can be a super enjoyable process every
Yeah.
step of the way, depending on how we feel and how our horse feels. And I think one last note, because I know we need to wrap it up, is the opposite of fear, because people sort of go, okay, there's all these shades of gray. How do I know when the
Mm.
nervous system is truly cohesive and fully dominant in the rest and digest use of it? And I go, because you're bored.
Yeah,
I go, we
that's
can't
good.
feel, I go, when we feel unsafe to any degree or unstable, we're not bored.
I don't want to be there. I think being
Yeah.
an Alexander teacher for so many years now, I don't want to go there.
Yeah. So I go, when trailer loading is so boring for your horse, right? Or if I'm trying to teach a horse to trailer load for life, we go to the trailer and make it the most boring event of the day, right? And anytime I get excitement, whether it's aggression or anxiety or tension or resistance, all of that is not bored, which equals don't feel safe,
Yep.
right? And when the horse just mooches up to the trailer, is kind of curious about what's inside, maybe there's some food, and just gets in a calm state, it's boring. It's easy, right? I go,
Yay.
that to me is mastering the task of trailer loading in the correct use of the nervous system
Yeah.
or with the cohesive use of the nervous system, which also means I can load that same horse in pretty much any trailer. If
Hmm.
it's rainy, if it's windy, if it's hot, if I'm in a hurry, if somebody's, doing something behind the trailer that's kind of distracting
Right.
with or without treats. I forgot them today. It's like that adaptability to the skill only comes if the skill was achieved in the learning frame of mind.
Right.
And that's the difference. So I still don't have a title or topic for today,
Well, maybe we'll have
but
our
it's
listeners send us back a title.
no, what I just thought of is I'm thinking self-regulated behavior because that's really the essence, the difference between gaining behavior through condition response or operant conditioning or desensitization or what else do we use? The sort of carrot stick, which is like positive, negative reinforcement or
Hmm.
and even if we talk like positive and negative reinforcement just mean we're saying yes or saying no. We could say yes and we could say no. We could use positive and negative reinforcement to cultivate habitual use of one nervous system or the other.
Right.
Like that's a trainable skill. that we can habituate. And when we do, it becomes transferable
Hmm.
from context to context. Like at first, it has to be just with the trailer, just being cross-tied, just with the farrier. But pretty soon, the stronger it gets, the more habitual it gets, it suddenly transfers to the unexpected thing my neighbor
Yeah.
does while I'm riding.
I see that with people that take Alexander lessons. I tell them, don't try to repeat this. You will see it just pop up in your normal daily activities. Oh, look how I chose to do that.
Yeah,
Oh, that was cool. Because as humans, we're in black and white, right and wrong.
yeah.
If we will let go of those things, there's a multitude of different ways of doing it.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's really on the radar for a lot of horse people
Good
that their
point.
horse's behavior could become self-regulated
Yeah,
because I don't know if people realize that's a possibility. And it is
good
a
point.
little bit of a surprise. Like I get the text message or the email all the time from people I've worked with long term, or people in our group will describe choices they observe a horse
Hmm.
make that
It's
was
lovely.
it was positive and
Hmm.
unexpected.
It's lovely.
Yeah. And
It's
they
just
do it
lovely.
more and more the more we're sort of just paying attention to how, where is our
Giving
horse
them space, I
mentally
think, like you said earlier, giving them space to
or time.
explore and time,
Yeah.
because those are the biggest things for us as humans to let go of.
No, and I've realized if I have any skill development or achieve tasks in the fight flight nervous system, I am now wasting my time and
I
I'm
agree.
wasting the horse's time.
I agree.
So, time spent, even if it's with basic handling, is time I am training. I am building and developing skills, even if they're not the skills yet that we ultimately want. We're sort of conditioning and building resilience for learning. Like,
I mean, I consider training when I enter the stall. Um,
yeah,
or even when I enter my office as an Alexander teacher, just the way that we're being at that moment makes a difference.
yeah. And our horse can have a bad day that
Yeah.
has nothing to do with us,
Mm.
right? But when we show up, we can be the solution. We can help them shift how they feel. And
Yeah,
we also get the credit for that. So when we provide those good feelings that are related to a cohesive use of the nervous system, they want to spend more time with us
mhm,
the same way we want to spend time around people that we feel good about.
yeah,
We
same
avoid
thing.
people we don't feel good about. I go, it's no different.
Nope.
So especially if our horse has, become hard to catch, we might have to really rethink, where's our horse's mental focus and how does our horse feel when we're doing things together? Because obviously it's not working for your horse.
It's not working for you either if you can't catch them.
Not really. Yeah. Yeah. And even if we do catch them, but they haven't really wanted that,
Yeah, you can tell.
yeah, you can tell, and it's the likelihood of things going sideways during your trading session is pretty high.
Mm.
Yeah. So let's wrap it up there. So I think the topic we finally finally figured it out by the end of the podcast is self-regulated behavior.
Okay.
I think that's a catchy title or
I like
catchy
it.
topic. Yeah, because it's like, what? What is, yeah, even horses can self-regulate their behavior.
Yes.
We see it all the time, but it's a very different result than what we're expecting when we're still in the frame of mind of seeking obedience or
Mhm.
desensitization or, positive reinforcement, conditioned response, operant conditioning, all of that is just not going to get the same result. It's not going to
Exactly.
teach our horse how to self-regulate.
Right.
Yeah. All right, we'll wrap it up there. Thanks everybody for joining us once again. We hope you find these podcasts helpful as food for thought, if nothing else,
Yes.
and that you go out and try a few things once in a while. And we look forward to seeing you on the next episode. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.